what you heard. I'm taking it all cause I want the world. Yeah, I want the world. Yeah, I want the world.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Today we have a very special guest with us. We have the amazing Scott Griffin of LA Guns and Sin City Rejects. Scott, thank you for joining us.
Hey Kai, what's going on?
How you doing, man? How has the quarantine been treating you? What have you been up to since then?
Well, I'm sitting out in front of my pool right now, so I'm doing okay. I live in a building, so it's a public pool, but I'm the only one out here right now, so I have it all to myself.
So before we get into everything, because
Yeah,
you're going to be releasing a new album soon,
yeah,
yeah, which we'll be talking about shortly.
okay.
How did you get into being a musician and doing everything you're doing now? Take us back, to the beginning.
Well, that's funny you asked that because, Eddie Van Halen just died, and
Right.
so I've been, he was the reason. I mean, to be short, the short answer is that, and the long answer is like, although I've been basically listening to Van Halen my whole entire life, so it's not like, oh my God, he died, and I'm starting to listen to all this Van Halen again. I just kind of am listening to Van Halen, but it's like because I always do. But
Mm,
it's brought back a whole bunch of memories, and I can remember the exact show I was watching. Not trying to date myself here, but there was there was no internet when I was a teenager. MTV was kind of just starting out, but there wasn't a lot of ways to see live bands unless you went to see live bands. And
right.
so I was still a kid, too young to drive and stuff like that. So I'd never seen any rock concerts. I went to like a Joni Mitchell concert with my mom took me once, and that was about it. So, Van Halen were going to be on this rock show like on Saturday night or something. So I stayed up late and watched it, and that was the first time I really ever saw a real rock band playing. And I saw Eddie Van Halen, and I can remember the show. It's called Don Kirshner's Rock Concert, and it showed what I've come to know later because I've seen it a billion times since then from YouTube and everything. It was three clips from this show in Oakland. It was three songs from the Fair Warning album, and I was just transfixed. I was like, it was a David Lee Roth interview where he's dressed up like Napoleon Bonaparte. I was like, who are these crazy guys? And it was like I'd heard them before, and I'd seen some pictures, but you don't see them until you see them talking and rocking out on stage. And the next day, I woke up and I told my mom, I said, "Mom, I want an electric guitar." I was already into rock. I'd been into rock. I wanted to play drums originally. So I
Hmm.
begged my mom all the year before for drums and everything. And I finally got drums for like a Christmas present. And it was just a few months later that I saw that. And I just didn't want to touch a drum set after I saw Eddie Van Halen. So that's where I started. And then I played guitar, all throughout my teenage years, my 20s. And I was in bands, but I was just in, little local bands I'm from Sylmar, California, which is in Los Angeles. It's in the Valley.
Hmm.
And, I was just another kid in another rock band and playing backyard parties and stuff. And it wasn't until I was like 19 or something before I actually played on the Strip. I played the Roxy. That was the first gig I played. And then I played the Whiskey and then Gazzarri's, and right before they closed. And I started playing all the different clubs, but we used to call it a industry buzz. None of those. I was never in a band like that. I was just in any crappy band I could get in just to play the stage. So um,
Right.
I never made any money really at it, and just kept playing. And it wasn't until a few years later, someone asked me to play bass. I was like, yeah, I can play bass. I have a bass. I bought a bass so I could record stuff at home and stuff.
Hmm.
And then I remember playing the show, and then at the end of the show, I said, "Man, great show, man. Thanks for asking me." And he said, "No problem." And he shook my hand, and he had money in it. And it was like, "Oh, what are you paying me for this?" Because I never got paid for anything. And when I started off playing, we had to pay to play. It was called pay to play, and to play on the Strip, you had to pay big bucks, man, because there was such a scene there. You were guaranteed, especially if you're playing the weekend, you were guaranteed a sold out house, whether you sold tickets or not. that was the lure, and it was usually around $1,000 or something. And if you have 4 or 5 guys in a band, it's about $250, $200 each. And we'd all just, we'd have our shitty day jobs and we'd save up our money, and we'd buy the tickets. We'd just go to the strip, and basically we would just give the tickets to all the hot chicks, because
Right.
we knew you bring one hot chick, will bring at least 2 or 3 guys. So that was it. And more hot chicks we had at a concert, the better it looks for us. So, and we were always playing with like a band that was like, a buzz band. We were like first or second on the bill or something like that. So we'd be on the same bill as the bands, but it was fun. It was totally worth it. It was like paying money for a party, and paying for your promotion and stuff like that. So I had no problem with it. I mean, I know there was a big thing, but it was so big back then that I got to look at it from a business standpoint. If I'm a club and there's a band that's willing to pay me to play my stage, what am I going to do? Say no? So, and then the scene died away, and they were still trying to pay to play, and that's when I said, I ain't going to pay to play. I'll pay to play if there's a packed house, but I'm not going to just pay to get up on a stage for like 10 people or something like that. So I wasn't making any money. So, it wasn't until I was like in my late 20s, I started playing bass, because I started people paid me for it. And it was kind of, the music scene was kind of coming back around. Maybe that had something to do with it. But
Mhm.
so I kind of just switched to bass. I have no problem. I love playing bass, man. It made me love music in a whole different way again. I had listened to all the bands that I love. By your late 20s, you're pretty much set in your musical ways, and so I'd heard every single Van Halen song. I'd heard every single Led Zeppelin song, every Kiss song, every Guns N' Roses song. Uh,
Mhm.
and so there was nothing new for me to hear, I thought, until I started playing bass. And then I started learning all these songs on bass, and then I was like, oh wow, I'm like, now there's a whole bunch of new heroes I got now, like John Paul Jones, or Duff McKagan, or I go, wow, I really like this guy's bass playing, or this guy's bass playing, and just started hearing the bass more. So I played bass, and that's how I ended up in LA Guns, pretty much. And then but I was still a guitar player. I mean, that's what I consider myself. That was the first instrument I ever really excelled at, and really put in the time and effort and played for years and years and years. And so it took me a while to come full circle, and now I'm back in LA Guns, and I'm the guitar player, not the bass player. So some things you got to wait for, and I have no problem with it. I had a good ride on the way here, and now I just finished up recording an album with them, and it's dreams come true. So
Mhm.
I'm hip on that.
So when did Sin City Rejects come in? How did that happen?
Well, now Sin City Rejects came in. Well, it's a lot of different things. Just kind of a lot of times things in my life happen not because of one thing happening, but like a whole smorgasbord of things happening at one time, and then I just because I just kind of like say yes to everything. I found that I get a lot more through life if I'm a lot more. I regret saying no more often than I regretted saying yes. There's some things I've regretted saying yes to, of course, but I
Right.
found personally in my life, if I had to choose between saying no all the time or saying yes all the time, I'd say yes all the time, because it seems there's less regrets that way. But I'll probably die one day by saying yes to something. So, uh, but it'll be fun up until that point. Um, so I moved out to Vegas, and then I got kicked out of LA Guns, and then I was playing in this band called Sin City Sinners, which were a local, still are. They're still it's a local band that had a couple original CDs out and do cover tunes, and they're kind of a big local band out here.
Mhm.
And then so I played bass in that band, and then our manager, we and him got on real well, and we'd hang out and stuff like that. And we found we had a lot of same musical tastes. We like punk rock a lot. One thing I will say about like when I got into bass, I made it a point to not go at bass as I did guitar. Guitar, I really studied it and everything. You had to, growing up in the 80s. I had to learn all these modes and Warren D. Martini stuff and all that kind of crazy shit. And
Hmm.
then, but bass, I just came in a kind of a punk rock kind of way. I just kind of just played just by ear, totally by ear. I didn't look at one bass player magazine or anything like that. And I wanted it that way. I wanted it like a, kind of be more of a punk style bass player. And so, anyways, my whole point is Jason was into punk too. And what I really wanted to do, what I've always wanted to do, was be a singer. I know I'm off in a million different directions. I start off on
No, go ahead.
drums, then I play guitar. No. I'm saying about my life. I start off on
Oh.
drums, then I play guitar. Then I don't make any money at it, so I started playing bass. But now all of a sudden you're hearing that I originally wanted to sing. I mean, but I think everybody, that's their probably their first instrument. They want to be a singer. You know, I remember seeing Elvis on TV, and
Hmm.
I wanted to be a singer, but uh, I just realized I wasn't Elvis. You know, I think I taped myself when I was a little kid and got real embarrassed or something. So you know what I'm talking about. So,
Yeah.
but then I did sing a bit. You know, I sang some songs in cover bands and stuff like that. So it wasn't like I couldn't sing. I just was never Sebastian Bach or anything like that. So
Right.
uh, my manager Jason, he always wanted to put a band together and play. He says I can play a little bass, man. And I said, well, I could sing a little. And he said that's perfect. Let's do a punk band. We don't want to be good. Let's get a really good guitar player, a really good drummer, so we can sound passable, and then do
Hmm.
our thing, man. And then it started off that way, and then we were just doing covers, and people liked it, and so and then one thing led to the next, and then Jason calls me up and he goes, "Hey, you know what? I have I wrote some lyrics for Sin City Sinners before, and they used them, and you want to hear some? Maybe we could write some original music." So he sent me some lyrics, and I started writing the music to it, and then since I was singing, I came up with the melodies and stuff like that. And he had really cool lyrics, and I was able to put some music together. So before you knew it, we're making an album. So that's like another dream that came true. I mean, that's a dream from when I was a little tyke, wanting to be
Hmm.
Elvis or something like that. So
So why Vegas?
why Vegas? Why not, man? It's just, I mean, I guess if I moved to somewhere, out in the middle of nowhere, you'd say why that. But Vegas is, even though now it's hard to, you can't really talk about now exactly because of this whole COVID crap.
Yeah.
But still, Vegas, although it's not as good as it was, but nothing ever is. It's still really the last place I can think of on earth. I'm sure there are little other nooks and crannies, but where music, live music and being a musician, you can make money out here. You can't make money in LA. I mean, I've been here for almost 10 years now. 10 years ago, there was no money to be made. I was in one cover band that we'd play every Friday at this little pub, and that was the only place we could find that would pay money. We play the biggest stages in LA. You'd make no money unless you were like a international recording artist or something like that. But well, I can't say when LA Guns when we'd play at LA Guns, we play there once a year. We get paid, but maybe twice a year, and that's about it. But I always had other bands going on. I'm always like in 5 or 20 bands at one time, so
Yeah.
I was making no money out of any of those. Out of here, I make money off of every band I'm in. Like I wouldn't play in a band unless I was making money, unless it was for like charity or something. But I don't even think about that, and that's the attitude to have. You can't have that attitude in LA. In LA, it's always, well, just play here for a month, and then if you get a crowd, then we'll start paying you. It's like, what? No, just pay me right now.
Yeah.
Make sure there's a crowd here. You know?
So are you still doing Kiss This?
Yeah, man. That was the first thing that went down, unfortunately, from the whole pandemic thing. I heard that's the first thing I remember going, wow, this is really screwed up, because we had a great thing going every week at the Rio, and they said, man, we're shutting down, and I thought they were like firing us, but they were going, no, we're just shutting the place down. We still got instruments in there. They locked it all up and everything. Our drummer still has his drums in there. Luckily he has a couple drum sets, but
Hmm.
he still has got to get drums out of there. We got our big lighted Kiss logo sign is in there. We don't have any way to get in there, so it happened so suddenly. But yeah, once everything starts coming back to normal, we should be playing out there again. I love playing in that.
Awesome, man. So,
Yeah,
you've been back in LA Guns for almost 2 years now, right? I believe.
yeah.
How does it feel to be
Time goes
back,
quick.
and what all have you been doing with them since? I know that the album is coming, of course.
Well, we were supposed to be on tour. We had a whole bunch of dates set, and I still have them in my calendar, and
Mhm.
I keep them in because I just cry when I look at them, and I just,
Yeah.
as the day goes by, I delete them, and I go, well, I would have been in, Louisiana this week. I would have been,
Mhm.
you know, New York this week or whatever, and so yeah, we had a whole bunch of dates going, so nothing's going on, just like everybody else. We played our initial gig was early last year at the M3 Festival in Maryland. That was
Mhm.
like our we had to prove ourselves kind of gig. No, a lot of people didn't know what to think. There's a lot of people who were like laughing at us, saying this is a joke. It's never going to happen. And we pulled it off. We got a ton of fans from that show, and then we were going to play again this year, but the COVID shit happened, and so but luckily we got so much traction just off that one gig, and we played a couple other gigs. We played out here. That was earlier this year, I believe. It was kind of like we just did M3. I think the M3 thing was just we were just going to play this one show, and then we gave it a few months, and then we saw that there was interest. A record company was there, Golden Robot Records, and they got interested. Said, we want to sign you guys. We know you guys can play. We know you guys have great songs, and so we know you guys can write. So we spent the end of last year, probably like right around this time, sending each other song ideas or songs that we already had written that weren't, recorded or any no copyright problems or anything like that. And it's kind of weird because we are literally all over the country. I'm in Vegas. Steve Riley, the drummer, is in LA.
Mhm.
Kelly Nichols, the bass player, is in New York. And Kurt Frolick, our singer, is in Florida. So we got two guys on the West Coast, two guys on the East Coast. So there's no way we could get together all the time and, rehearse and in person and stuff like that. So we just sent each other demos of stuff that we had. And then we'd, go back and forth and get lyrics onto them. And Kurt did a lot of the lyrics, for stuff that didn't have lyrics. I think Kurt just wrote all the lyrics for the stuff that wasn't already recorded. And
Mhm.
then, and we got like enough songs together. And then we set up a recording date in LA. Got there about 3 days prior so that we could rehearse, go through the songs, suss them out and everything. And then we just went in there and bam, bam, bam. We got the thing done in like a week. We had to. We didn't really have any time. We didn't have
Right.
the budget to stay out for three guys to stay out in LA. 'Cause Steve already lived there, and
Mhm.
then recording fees and rehearsal fees and all that. But I don't think we needed it because I've heard the album and I'm really proud of it. It's amazing. I mean, I don't listen to it and go, wow, that's a great album for 2 weeks or however long it took. It's
Mhm.
just a great album, I think. So we'll see how it does. The singles that we've had come out, people seem to be digging them.
Oh yeah, I actually listened to all your singles. I believe you released how many? Was it three or four for your for this new album already? I believe Renegades, obviously,
Yeah,
Well
that's
Oiled
the.
Machine, and
Mm-hmm.
Crawl.
Yeah, that's three. I
Hmm.
think we have another one coming out right before the album comes out. I think I'm not sure, but I know the album comes out on November 13th. We might have
Right.
one more single come out before then, but so yeah, less than a month.
So, what if anything has changed since the first time you were with them, or since you were last with them?
Well, I play a different instrument. That's the main thing.
Right.
Um,
Would you say
and
style or anything else, or even just like the experience you have with each other, or anything at all like that?
I think I'm a lot more confident now. I didn't allow myself to be confident the first time around because I was around guys who had so much more experience than I did. Two of the guys in the band I was literally listening to when I was a teenager. I mean, they were molding me into the musician I'd become. It wasn't
Hmm.
so. They were like idols, and I was like, for a long time, especially in the recording part of it, because there's recording and touring and stuff like that. Touring, we did so much touring. I got really used to that, and and then I was okay on my feet, after a few months, and I was like, all right, I got this. This is great, because I had never done that much extensive touring before. We were out almost every single weekend. But recording, it was just like, I don't know what to do. It's like, do you want songs of mine? And they were like, yeah, give us what you got. Do you want full songs, like with lyrics, or are you gonna do the lyrics or singing? And so I didn't know, I didn't want to. It wasn't that I was like shy. It was like I just wanted to do it the right way. Like, I'm always into learning. If I don't know something, I'm not shy to say, hey, teach me. I don't come into something that I don't know, like acting like oh, I know what the fuck's going on, because I don't. And it's like, I'd rather take a little time to learn what the hell's going on and then come up with that attitude. But
Right.
so we only did one album, or a studio album. We have a live album out too, but the only studio album. So I was, that was just a matter of me learning the ropes, kind of thing. And then this time around, I was a little more confident. I expected a song or two of mine to be on the album. I expected to have my own say into how my solos were, and it's just because I was kind of felt I was my own person a little more, and I didn't feel like I was stepping on anybody's feet, but I was a little more knowledgeable, I guess, what to expect and what is kind of expected of me. So that just all of that together equals like confidence, and so I was just more confident this time around, and it was a lot easier, a lot harder too in a lot of ways. The biggest thing was I'm playing lead guitar now. Not saying that bass is a simple instrument, but it's just people notice the guitar more, obviously, like singing
Right.
too. And then, being that, the other guitar player and the other LA Guns, which that's a whole other story, is, kind of a big deal. It's like, I knew there would be like comparisons, but I didn't let that bother me, so I didn't try to sound like him. I tried to, throw a few curveballs. I didn't come out of the gate like flying on the guitar and everything like I thought would be the most obvious thing. In fact, the first single from the album was Crawl. And we kind of knew that was going to be the first single. When you're making an album, you kind of just hear songs and you go, everybody kind of just knows. It's just like, that's the first single right there. We kind of all knew that. And so I had like this, decision. I was like, wow, I got to really show everybody that I can play guitar. And then I was kind of trying to come up with all these guitar solos and everything. And I was like, you know what? I don't have to show anybody anything. I said, I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm not going to have any guitar. I mean, there's a whiff of a guitar solo on there, but basically there's nothing. And it made sense because the song Crawl, it just has this kind of vibe to it. And I was finding when I was doing all these, trying to show off, it just didn't fit. And then when
Right.
I played more like to a soundtrack or something. In fact, it reminded me of this grindhouse movie called Death Planet, I think, or something. It was like with Kurt Russell, and the guy that directed the film wrote the music for it too. And that was the vibe I tried to give off on the, I guess you call it a solo. And I liked it. It was like, because I knew people would like listen to it. They go, okay, let's hear what this guy got. And then I go, what the hell was that? So it was kind of a little sleight of hand on my part. They couldn't really put me down. They couldn't really critique me because I didn't give them anything to critique. So,
Mhm.
and I just think it made kind of sense that way.
Just pivoting for a second, I did
Yeah.
want to talk about you a little bit more. So, what are some of your greatest memories as a musician? Whether that's like your favorite
Well,
bands you toured with, or played with, or meeting somebody you never
yeah.
thought you would because you looked up to them so much when you were younger, or just anything at all like that.
Well, a big thing is playing the Strip for the first time. When I was a teenager, playing the Roxy. I can remember that day vividly. that was such a huge thing for me. I had like this little Toyota pickup truck, and the day everything was going wrong, and I'm driving through the canyon from the valley to Hollywood. You can either take the freeway around or you take the canyon, and I decided to take the canyon. And when you're taking the canyon, there's no gas stations or anything. And I remember I'm driving there, and I look at my gas tank, and it's on empty, and I'm just like, if I fucking run out of worst place in the world to run out of gas, the canyon. I mean, you're
Mhm.
screwed. You're totally screwed. You have to, first of all, you're either going straight up or you're going straight down, and so you got to find somewhere to park in some weird way, and then you're gonna have. I said, I'm not. This is what's gonna happen. I'm gonna run out of gas. I'm not gonna make this gig, you know. And so I had that going on. I did make it, obviously, and then I can just remember loading in, and I just remember thinking, this is the beginning of something. It's like this is not just a backyard party. This is like a real gig, you know. And I just remember everything. I remember the sound guy going, "Wow, that's the sound guy." You know, I'd been to like I'd seen bands play, so I knew what to expect. You know, I'd known bands that had played, but it was like now it's happening to me. Now I'm on stage, you know. And then I can remember going upstairs, and there was a couple bands on before us, and you're able at the Roxy, you were able to look out through this little secret hole that nobody could see where you were. You could see the stage, you could see the crowd and everything like that. And I could see the crowd filling up, and that was a really special memory. That, and then obviously joining LA Guns, that's huge. That's
Mhm.
that kind of like legitimized my career in a way. Although I feel if you're just a musician, no matter what, as long as you give it your best, whatever height or however high or however high you don't ascend to, everybody has a peak, and as long as you've given it your best shot, that should be a validation enough for you. But there are things that we're like, just being human beings, we like to look at things like being in a national act or making an album, kind of like goals, So that was a
Yeah.
big goal for me to like, wow, I made it into a real band, that where literally we could play Czechoslovakia and have people going crazy over us. So that was kind of that was like a big check mark for me. It was almost like it was kind of like it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's like I could die now, and it's like, oh, at least I did this. At least I toured the world, and that was a big thing for me. You know,
Mhm.
not saying I would have been depressed if I didn't, but it definitely was a very nice thing.
Do you have any favorite places to play, like different countries or anything?
You know, Scandinavia is really cool. When we were playing it, maybe I don't know how it is now, but when we were playing it, like Finland and all around there, what am I thinking? Like Sweden or whatever.
Mhm.
When we were playing there, I don't know if it was just a thing that was going on there or they're always like this, but there was a huge metal revival, like 80s metal. And there was like, people from 18 years old to my age, just everybody was into metal. And I mean, there was these kids in their 20s that were dressing like we dressed in the 80s and with their
Mhm.
hair like Aquanet. And it was like,
Nice.
is this supposed to be like some like what is this like a Halloween thing? And they're going, nah, this is the way we are. We love the '80s. And I was like, wow, this is fucking amazing. So yeah, you always want to feel you're sort of relevant. You know what I mean? And I guess we kind of put a little stock in like what the younger crowd thinks.
Mhm.
So and to see that they were totally getting it and knew exactly what was going on, it was like, wow, this is cool. It's like, I haven't missed the train completely. So that's cool. I liked playing there for that reason. I like South America too because they go nuts. They go completely bonkers, and I like crowds that go crazy like that. Growing up in LA, all my first gigs, there was a lot at the beginning with the strip, everybody was going crazy, but there was a lot of like arms folded kind of attitude, like people have seen everything, and what are you going to show us? So I got a lot of
Mhm.
that too. So whenever I see crowds just going nuts, I go, I love this. Um, the Midwest is still pretty much like that for America, though. So I like the Midwest a lot too. I love the Midwest, to tell you the truth. They're just great people out there. Just really, love music. They're just like lifelong fans, and they just want to rock, and that's what you want when you play a show. You just want to play for people who love that kind of entertainment. It's like some people love going to movies. Some people love going to I don't know, musicals or operas or plays, and so you want people there that really love being there. So those are the places in the world: Midwest, Scandinavia, Latin America, but everywhere. Is cool. I'm not putting down any place. I love playing everywhere, but there's just certain places that have like interesting memories that make you go, "Wow, this was a great show." And we played
Right.
also out in Sweden. It was a big show for me. I remember we played Sweden Fest with Alice Cooper and played right before Alice Cooper and Wasp, and we played right before them, and that was like huge. That was like probably my biggest show I think I played. That was
So what do you
great.
think happened with everybody from the 80s with all the hair metal and all the glam and all the makeup and all the really amazing shows? What happened from then to now? Because obviously now there's not that many people that do the hair anymore. There's still some
Mm.
good performances out there, but appearance wise, it's really lacking. So what do you think happened, and do you think that will come back soon to where people actually start doing their hair again and like caring more about their appearance rather than just going on stage and in jeans and a t-shirt?
Yeah, well, a lot of the people lost their hair. Just,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not putting it down or anything. I mean, you can wear a wig. There's nothing wrong with that. Uh,
Mhm.
and some do. So I know what you're talking about, though. But literally, no, people did get older. And I think a lot of people grew out of that. Like probably also, fitness wise.
Mhm.
You look a lot cooler in spandex when you're 21 and thin then you know what I mean? So that has a lot to do with it. But that being said, there's always a cool way to look. I think in most cases, if not all cases, if you tried to dress like you're 21 when you're like 41 or older or something, that could run into problems. And who does that anyways? There's no band, even the greatest bands never dressed the same as they always did. So but that being said, there's still cool ways you could dress, and I know what you're talking about. Like it seemed like a lot of bands kind of gave up on that.
Mhm.
I think maybe just I didn't make it in the '80s, so I don't know what they're going through. But I know even on a small level, like I was, the '90s just kind of like really did a backlash on the '80s, and I think that affected the way they think about the '80s, and I think it just like a lot of people went, I just want to forget that the way I look was made so much fun of or something like that. Or I don't think that as much as all of a sudden none of us could get record deals if we even looked anything like the '80s or sounded anything like the '80s, and so it was almost like a survival thing. I remember when the '90s happened. I had the Ibanez guitar, the pointy neck with the crazy neon red color and everything like that,
Mhm.
whammy bar, the whole thing. And I remember I was trying out for bands, and I remember this one band I tried out for. They sounded modern to me back then. They didn't sound like Motley Crue. They
Mhm.
sounded like what was like grunge. What ended up being grunge. And I was like, this is cool. You know, I wasn't a big fan of it, but I was willing to like try to be in a band. And I remember one band, I came out to audition for them, and I was getting along with the guys and everything, and it was cool. They seemed like cool guys. And I took out my guitar, and the singer just looked at the guitar and he goes, there's really even no reason to rehearse, I mean, to audition. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
and like, and I didn't because I was kind of a little naive to the whole situation. And then after that, I was like, wow, there really is a big shift going on like that. And so, and then I saw it, and then I was just true to myself, and I kind of got out of music because I couldn't find any bands that I liked because a lot of it just seemed real boring to me. Um, after you watch Motley Crue and Kiss and all that kind of stuff, to be expected to come out not even in stylish Levi's, but like just baggy Levi's with like a black concert shirt on or something like that. It was like I just didn't want to go out on stage looking like that, you know.
Mm.
I was okay, you know. I mean, I understood. I could see when the '90s happened. You look back and you go, "Wow, everybody was just going so crazy." But I still love that, you know. Um,
Mm.
but it was like kind of cool. You go, you know, maybe we should tone it all down a little bit, you know. And I wasn't any crazy look or anything like that. But I was around people that were, and like, you know, I'd choose my hair up and stuff like that. And so it was kind of a cool thing, the '90s, because it taught you how to tone down a little bit, but then still keep your style. But that took a few years, you know. So I kind of gave up music for a few years, actually. I gave up rock, and then I just started going to college, taking music in college. And then I started taking some acting classes and art classes. I just kind of hung around the art section of the college, the community college, and I did that for like about 4 years, man. I got a college grant, moved in with some chick, and I just you know, and she had a job, so I was still doing the whole musician thing, living off the chick, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she was cool with it, you know. I mean, you know, I was making enough to where I could help out a little bit, but I definitely couldn't do it on my own. But I was able to just immerse myself in college, you know, the arts, so to speak. I didn't take like English classes. I took like a couple or something. I didn't take any of the standard classes. I just would just take all the music, art, and acting classes and stuff like that. It was pretty cool.
I did
Yeah.
want to ask you that question because a lot of the bands that I've seen, especially like the newer bands that have come out, that are in their 20s or early 30s or whatever it is, it seems like it's so rare now to come across a band that actually has that awesome appearance where like it amazes you and you want to be like, man, you know, they're awesome to see. They have a better appearance. They care about their theatrics, you know, the performance of it all.
Yeah.
It's so rare to see that now, which is why I'm kind of sad that I didn't grow up in the '80s myself. But
Right.
has are there any modern bands that have caught your attention today?
Yeah, I mean, you know, what's so weird? Modern changes so quick. I can't believe it's 2020 already. That means like 2000 was 20 years ago, which blows my mind. Uh,
Yeah.
2010 was 10 years ago, man. That's insane. So, you know, um, like, I don't know if I know any bands like right now that are just like a year old or something. I try to, I don't try to keep up on modern music, but I just do listen. Spotify helps a lot
Mhm.
uh, because you can hear a lot of stuff that I know Spotify. A lot of people hate it, but it's a really cool tool, man, to keep up on stuff and also it has a lot of different purposes. Like I play in a lot of cover bands, so I have to learn a billion songs. I can't
Mhm.
be buying CDs off of every song, you know. It's like so. But as far as new bands, I mean, I don't want to date myself. It's going to sound like they're not new, but one of the coolest bands I think of the 2000s. Well, I like bands like the Strokes. You know, I mean, I don't even know if they're still around anymore. They were new at one point. You know, that bands like that kind of have that kind of punk kind of sound. I think that's the cool sound of the 2000s. There's a couple bands I can't think of their names, but they had a cool 80s metal sound. I think one was from Sweden. Their name escapes me right now, but there were a couple bands like that. I'm not into the death metal, new metal kind of stuff. Yeah, I remember that was another thing that happened when, you know, the '80s glam thing. You either went grunge or you went fucking heavy, you know. And I was like, I wasn't into either of that. You know, I always liked song bands that had ballads, you know, like sappy ballads that chicks dug, you know, and melodic stuff. Like I
Mhm.
remember, like in the '90s, like a lot of stuff that I did like was coming from England. Like I liked Blur and Oasis and
Mm.
that kind of stuff. And I remember I loved Blur for so long, and I still do. But it was like I hadn't seen them. I never saw them live or anything. Then when I finally did, I was kind of like nothing against them. I mean, but I was like, these guys don't sound anything like they don't look anything like they sound. I thought they were going to look a lot cooler than they do. I mean, I think that's a compliment to them. I think they kind of wanted to look kind of nerdy, kind of Weezer or something like that. And I was
Right.
like, it's kind of weird. Like, have you ever heard of the Libertines?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite band. I was going to say the Strokes, but I think I like the Libertines because they're a little more rare and they're just great. They were had one of their albums was recorded, produced by one of the guys from the Clash,
Mhm.
and they just got that kind of modern sound. Again, I don't know when the last time they came out with an album was, but it was probably 2010 or 12, which is still new to me, I guess. What was the other band that came out? I thought they were kind of cool with a thing called Love, the Darkness. They were cool.
Right.
I was never into like Foo Fighters or anything. They're great. Dave Grohl is amazing. I'm not saying he's not, but I
Mhm.
just I was always into more glammier kind of stuff. I like listening to you're making me want to listen to a lot more uh, modern music so I can get back into things. Maybe that's what I need to do.
Just a couple more things before we start wrapping it up. Then
Yeah.
you're also a realtor as well, making you one of the very few realtors who look the way you do. How has that been going for you? And have you had what type of problems have you had in that industry, if any?
I think there's a few other people that just don't come out and say it, but a lot of people, you got to make your money some way, man. It's really chill with me. I'm not. What's cool about how I do real estate? I'm not like I go into work every day and put on a suit or anything like that.
Hmm.
I'm just like the way I got into it was I was playing with this drummer. He said, "You got a good voice, man. You ever get into like selling or something like that?" And I said, I did some telemarketing at one point. Just try to make cool extra bucks." He said, "You do good at it?" And I said, "Yeah. I mean, I make sales. He goes, "Dude, I got into real estate, man, and I made a huge chunk of money." He says, "I'm not in it anymore, but the guy that I was working for, he's like this cool cat. He's a bass player. He's makes tons of money at it. He's got his own team. He's been doing it for like 30 years." I think introduced myself, and he dug me. He said, "Just get your license." So I just went to school real quick, got the license. I think I barely passed, but I did. But but what I did, I just luckily it was just at the right time. I wasn't doing anything, and I just studied every day. And it took me about 3 weeks, and then I just went in, took the classes, and just I passed the test. And so I'm with this guy, and he tells me, "Man, you don't have to do any. Just bring me clients, man. Just I'll help you." So it's like I'm learning constantly, but I'm on a team that knows everything. So I can tell everybody, hey, I know I'm the rock star realtor, and it's all like kind of like a gas or whatever. It's kind of cool, but I really know my shit. I mean, not me personally, but my team who works with me every step of the way knows their shit. We're at a major company, so I'm able to bring in people from fans or fellow musicians, who I like to think that they trust me a little more you know than someone else they don't know that maybe is just trying to make some money off them.
Hmm.
And like if they're selling, then I can steer them in the right direction. It makes it a little more comfortable. So and I love one thing from going to college and getting into art. I was really into architecture. I was wanting to pursue that almost for a little bit during the 90s. So I love going to houses and checking them out. I'm able to go like to these really nice houses and just any house really, because I get to find out, oh, this is the way they were doing things in the 70s. How Vegas, these are the architects, and so I kind of get a kick off of it, to tell you the truth.
Hmm.
And I like being around people, so it's all good, helping people out, making some extra money, and then it doesn't affect my rock career one bit.
Yeah, man, I love it because I mean, obviously you have long hair, and so when people see you, you don't have that clean cut appearance, and I like that actually. So, because I actually plan on buying a house within the next year, so obviously I'm
You
gonna
know
go
who
to
to
you.
come to,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's one of my main things. It's I believe that any job they shouldn't hold. If you're a guy who has long hair or whatever it is, they shouldn't hold that against you
Yeah.
because I've had my share of problems with that. Like, I actually applied for a job, probably about a year or so ago, and I forgot they still did that. Like, oh, we have to cut your hair if you want to work for us, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, because I did that
Right.
one time before, and yeah, I'm like, no, I regretted it instantly the second I
Of
did it. So,
course. Of
so yeah,
course.
but
You've been
but a
through it.
couple
I
more.
know.
Yes, yes, a couple more things about you. You're really fond of baseball.
Yeah.
What's your favorite team?
Well, the Dodgers, man, all the way. They're
Nice.
going to
Okay.
the World
Because
Series. They're taking
yeah,
it, man. Number 7.
Houston Astros just lost and they've won,
Yeah.
the past whatever. So I was kind of upset about that, but but other than that, you said the greatest rock and roll band of all time is Rolling Stones. Do you still stand by that, or have you changed that since?
No, I still stand by that, man.
All right, and a couple
I,
more
I,
things.
I was thinking, you know what, I really do, because there's a lot of. I'll wake up every day and I'll be more in a certain whatever mode. But I think with the Stones, I can. That just is. So they are. We have to put it on. We have to label somebody with it, and it might as well be the Stones. They're still around, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
and they were around before all of us were, man. They were around at the
Hmm.
beginning, and they just deserve that moniker more than anybody. And they just really do. I mean, you put on like "Give Me Shelter" or something. It's just like, fuck. Man. I wish I could write a song like that. Damn, that's the ultimate, to write something that powerful with that little bit they do. There's just 3 chords that they keep going over and over and over again on there. It's just like all they need. So yeah, Mick Jagger, man, he's the ultimate.
So, what are some things from the '70s that should be brought back today? Whether that's, I mean, the '80s, whether that's music, toys, dances, inventions. What is the new generation missing out on? What should be brought back today?
Well, that's funny because I've talked about this. Whenever things do come back, and
Hmm.
I find sometimes it comes back, like as far as fashion and shit like that, almost even better, because you're able to look at the back. You're able to look like, say, something like the '70s or the '80s, and go,
Hmm.
okay, that was cool, but that was ridiculous. You know what I mean? So you're able to
Right.
like cut away all the ridiculous. Like, okay, that just looks foolish. I mean, like the what is that? What was that hairstyle in the '80s? The mullet. You know,
Mm.
like all that was going on at the same time. I mean, it wasn't just Motley Crue. There was a lot of people who didn't know what. Everybody was kind of trying to figure out what was the next big thing. We all like kind of romanticize our past and say it was all great, but there was a lot of as cool as the '80s were, there was a lot of cringy stuff there. And so when you're able to look back and you go, okay, I'll keep that, you know,
Mhm.
but I'll definitely get rid of that. I'll definitely get rid of the checkered spandex, for instance, or something. Checkerboard spandex, but the tight leather, that's still cool as long as you're in
Yes.
shape and stuff. You know what I mean? That's cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's still badass as long as you don't have a big Coors Light belt buckle or something. I don't know. It just,
Mhm.
you're able to like look back and take the best parts of it. So I know a lot of what I miss about the '80s or even the '70s. Is stuff that's just personal to me, just because I was a kid. You know,
Mhm.
um, record players, records. That's huge, man. I still haven't listened to music like I've listened to it since I listened to albums. Now I don't know if that's because I was a kid when I was listening to albums, or because there is something special about it. But I think there is, because I'll talk to a lot of teenagers, or people in their 20s today, and they'll go, "Wow, I just got vinyl." They call it, like, I still call it a record. It's just a record, but I
Mhm.
guess we call it vinyl nowadays. Man, I listen to vinyl now, and it's so cool putting it on an album, and and I'm like, yeah, it is. You stare at the album cover. So I think there is something about it. That's one thing I bring back. I think there's like a charm to original stuff.
Mhm.
I'm the same with my amps. I like my amps tube. I like them. I like all the effects pedals. I don't have a lot, but what I do is exactly kind of what I used in the '80s. I got an old delay pedal, an old chorus pedal. A lot of people don't even use chorus anymore. I'll put a little on sometimes there,
Mhm.
and there's just something that's real or charming, or something about original ways the computer generation or whatever this is called right now just kind of lacks. Not saying it's a
Right.
bad thing. It's good, you got to progress. You're always going to lose something. I'm sure when cars came out, there was a bunch of people who said, "Yeah, cars are cool, but nothing like riding a horse."
Yeah.
They'd be saying.
Yeah. So the last thing is,
Yeah.
I got this from your Facebook. Some of your favorite movies, and this is just so people get to know you a bit more.
Oh, cool. I
You
can't even
said,
remember what I put.
yeah, I wrote it down. I put Rocky, The Good, the Bad, and the
Yeah.
Ugly, Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, Saturday Night Fever, Shampoo, Breathless. Are those still your favorite movies, or have they changed since then?
You know, uh, I remember that post, man.
Hmm.
Those were like movies that had like father figures to me because
Right.
I just grew up with a single mom. That post was like when I realized like a lot of my favorite movies, these were like my father figures, like Clint Eastwood or Sylvester Stallone, um, Warren Beatty, Richard Gere. These are all like these strong, macho or sex, kind of guys women dug and men wanted to be. And so that's a big part. That is, I don't know. It's probably because they were like father figures to me. That's why they were big movies to me. But I do like those kind of movies. So I would say those are still my favorite movies. Yeah, I would. And those are movies that a lot of those movies are movies that people know. But I'm a huge movie aficionado kind of guy. I love a lot of rare movies. I love a lot of B movies from the
Hmm.
60s and 70s, especially. A lot of foreign films like Italian and French. I'm really into spaghetti westerns, which are
Mm.
kind of like Italian westerns that came out in the 60s and the 70s, and they're
Hmm.
just so badass. Also, a lot of the Italian horror movies that came out at the same time. What they would do, The Exorcist would come out like in the 70s, and then they would just, in Italy especially, a whole bunch of directors would just basically just rip off The Exorcist and just make tons of movies based on it. And when they came out, everybody just thought, oh, these are just ripoffs. But as time has went on, people have started looking back and go, you know what, this was like a really cool film though, and they are. They're really creepy. I love my girl. She's a huge horror movie fanatic, and I was always kind of like into the movies like that I said I was, and like the westerns and stuff like that. I always liked horror movies, but she really got me into horror movies. And then when I was making the album, Kurt, my singer, who's also into horror movies, he told me about this thing called Shutter. Have you ever heard of Shutter?
I have. I think I've seen it, but I can't remember
Yeah,
what it's about.
it's a horror movie app.
Right.
It's like Netflix but for horror movies. So me and my girl have just watched hundreds of movies on that thing, and
Mm.
I just got this new projector. It's like a movie theater at your house. It's killer. It's like 100 inches, and I'm able to do DVDs. I'm trying to figure out how to get my computer so we can watch some Shutter on it. Man, that would be awesome. So we
Nice.
just go out on the balcony and watch movies all night. It's great. Should
Yeah,
get
that's
one.
badass.
Yeah,
Yeah, hell yeah.
the projectors are awesome. They're like record players for movies. It's like
Hmm.
I'm so more addicted to movies now that I got this projector. It's just awesome. I watching a movie on a TV is just like so dead to me now. It's like I have to use this projector.
I
So
feel that.
killer.
I definitely will. But
Yeah.
other than that, that's about the end of the episode. Do you have any final thoughts? And I'll real quick before we do,
Yeah.
LA Guns Renegade. The new album is coming out November 13th, which is
Yes.
Friday the 13th, I believe. Correct?
Totally. Why you know what's going to happen? Come on
Yes,
now.
sir. All right. So when can we expect you again on tour? Obviously, I believe the rest of this year is probably not going to happen. But do you see a projected date or maybe an estimated
Well, I don't have
tour?
the dates in front of me, but we do have dates scheduled already for the beginning of next year,
Hmm.
and I think some are even being publicized. So it's like they're already selling tickets for some shows. Just national, nothing international right now,
Hmm.
but I think there's some on the East Coast, a couple of Midwest or something like that. I'm not sure. So I'm hoping by March, the latest, we'll be back out. and then hopefully we'll just get back to normal, man, and living our lives again. This just really sucks. What's going on? Um, we only get one time to live, man, and you
Mhm.
know, I hope everybody the best. I wish everybody the best. I want everybody to be safe. Wear your mask or do what just be kind to other people. And, I don't always agree with everything, but I always agree to to try to work with people and try to spread the love, I guess, or something,
I
and be
feel it.
cool with people. And hopefully we can all be cool and get through this and then get on to, having fun like we used to, you know,
Yes. Sounds great, man. All right,
right
Scott,
on. Cool,
thank you
man.
for doing this, man. I loved it. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right, take care, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this episode and take care.